BookTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer, and today I wanted to share how I finally finished my very first draft. On my channel, I recently shared how I finished the first draft of the novel that I was working on and how it is the very first complete first draft that I've ever finished, and I was really excited, and it was a long journey to get me to the point where I could finish a first draft, and so I just wanted to share here some of the obstacles that kept me from finishing first drafts before and how I was able to overcome those obstacles this time around. I have always really been into reading and writing. I've always loved novels. In 6th grade I used to carry around a binder that I would write I was writing a book based off of a game that my brother and I used to play when we were kids, and I would tell people I was going to publish it before I turned 16 and all this different stuff, you know. And when I got into middle school and high school, it kind of fell by the wayside, and I would try and write some drafts, but they'd always end up being like 1 or 2 pages in, and I'd kind of quit, and I just didn't really know how to write novels. It wasn't a consistent habit for me or anything like that, and I did write a lot still and was practicing that, and I read a whole lot too, so I was getting a lot of really good practice there with reading, but I just wasn't able to write a draft. When I was 19, my husband, he wasn't my husband then, but we later got married, but so before we weren't even dating at the time when this happened, he introduced me to NaNoWriMo. And I started writing a memoir type thing about my summer, and I didn't end up, NaNoWriMo is in November and you're supposed to write a whole novel in November, and I ended up completing that in February. So it took me a lot longer, but I did end up finishing it, but it was a memoir, not a novel. After my husband and I got married, I continued to try doing NaNoWriMo, and I think I have tried 3 times to write a novel during NaNoWriMo unsuccessfully. There have been other times that I have started writing novels and just not finished them, not during NaNoWriMo. The most recent NaNoWriMo that I tried, I ended up with the most words that I've ever had towards a novel, which was about 20,000. I think it was like 20,000, it was between 20 and 21,000. And the way that I did that is I wrote the beginning, basically up to the catalyst in a 3-act structure, and then I wrote from Hightower Surprise, if you follow Save the Cat books, and wrote to the end. And so I had the beginning and the end, and I was like, I'll go back and write the middle, and then I never did. And that was my most recent attempt at writing novels, and never worked. This time around I was able to successfully finish my novel. I am currently working on the 2nd draft, and I'm really excited because honestly I love 2nd drafts a whole lot more than first drafts. I prefer editing to getting it out there. So now I've finished my first draft of my most recent book successfully from beginning to end, including the middle, which is, I hated writing the middle, but it's there, I wrote it. And here are the 5 problems that I encountered before that I was able to overcome this time. The number one thing that was keeping me from finishing first drafts was my mindset. I had not a very good mindset around writing. So one of the things that I was able to do with it is I read the book Mindset by Carol S. Dweck, and she goes into a lot of detail. I would highly recommend that book. It's one of the best self-help books, top 3 self-help books that I have read. It has changed my life, and one of the things she talks about is viewing your traits. You can view them either in a fixed mindset way, where you see them as you are the way you are. I'm just not creative. That's just the way I am. Or you can see them as being capable of change and growth through 3 different ways: through hard work, through using different methods, and by asking for help. And if you do those 3 things, then she argues that any trait or characteristic or skill can be improved on. And that doesn't mean that some people aren't born more naturally inclined towards different things or anything like that. It just means that if you want to write novels and you don't think you're creative, you can learn the skill of being creative. That's kind of what it is. And one of the things that I've always thought is I'm not creative. One of the things that would happen is I'd start writing my novel, and I'd be excited about this brilliant idea, you know, and I'd start writing it, and I'd get like 2 or 3 chapters in and I'd be like, well, this sucks. This book is not any good at all. Why am I even writing this? And I'd go to write the rest of it and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to write more because what I already have is not that good and I wasn't excited about it anymore. And then I'd go, well, I must just not like writing novels. It's just not what I meant to write. I just am not a novel writer. So one of the things that I changed is I just forced myself to do it. I knew in my head, I knew that first drafts aren't good. I knew that writing is a skill that you have to practice to get better at. I knew that I could write a novel if I really wanted to. I knew that I could learn to like writing novels if I wanted to, but I didn't really believe it. And so what I did is, part of what I did was I just forced myself to write really bad stuff. And some of it was really bad. And sometimes I would actually stop because I was getting feedback from my writing group, and I would stop and I would rewrite a scene because I was like, that was so bad. And they'd give me ideas and I'd rewrite it and I'd be like, wow, I actually really like this now, and I'd move forward. So one of the other things I did to overcome this first one was to get feedback both from my husband and my writing group. And it really helped me to see the potential in my first draft, even though what I had wasn't good. And so then I was able to move forward with it, sometimes without even rewriting it, because I knew that I could go back and change it. And that was something that I understood. It also forced me to write something, even if it was bad, and submit it. And sometimes I was embarrassed to submit what I wrote because I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't believable at all, why, you know, or this is so silly or so dumb, or I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I just wrote it and submitted it and got through my first draft that way. And now I feel so empowered to go and write more things, even if it's silly or dumb. And I feel like I'm learning as a person to overcome my fear of looking silly or my fear of not writing something perfect, because I forced myself to do that because I had a support system. I read about mindset and having a growth mindset, and I've been working on that. And because I was able to get good feedback that was both, oh, well, you need to fix this and let's brainstorm some ways you can, and look, this is what you're already doing well at. And I had feedback in both those areas from my husband and my writing group, and so I was able to push forward through the mess of my very first draft. The number 2 thing that was keeping me from finishing my first drafts before was that I did not know myself as a writer. I was trying to do NaNoWriMo, where you write 2,000 words a day for 30 days and you push through it really fast and then you're done. That is not my writing style. I can't do that. I didn't realize that there are people who like to do that and people who don't like to do that. I am one of the people who don't like to do that. I am much more a 500 words a day, get it done first thing in the morning, do it the next day, do it the next day. And then on the days when I don't want to write, I write 500 words or even 150 words, and then I'm done. And then I go on with the rest of my day and I feel good because I wrote that day, and the next day I do it again, and it takes me longer to finish a first draft. But then I don't feel like I'm behind, I don't get like 10,000 words behind and then not want to write because I'm supposed to write more than even the minimum, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to write at all, and then I just go 5 days without writing, and then I'm like, well, now it's too late, now I can't do NaNoWriMo anymore, so I might as well just quit this novel. And one of the other things that I am not a Gardner writer. That is not my favorite part of writing a novel. My favorite part of writing a novel is not sitting down and being like, what are we going to do today? Where are these characters going to take me? What is this character going to surprise me with? I do not do that. There are people in my writing group that do that, where they're like, I love just sitting down and like things happen, and I'm like, that does not happen for me. I am not a Gardner writer. So I am definitely an architect, and you can look up pantsers versus plotters, or architect versus Gardner, or whatever. I'm not a pantser, I'm a plotter. I'm not a Gardner, I'm an architect. Those two are kind of synonymous, and you can look those up on other channels if you want to learn more about those. But I really need the structure, and I didn't know that before. one of the other things that I learned about myself is I am not the kind of person who likes to sit down and brainstorm alone. I'm not the kind of person who likes to sit down and just have things come out about the world or the character or anything. I am someone who likes to sit and talk with my husband or my writing group and be like, well, what if this happened? Well, I need this to happen in my novel. How can I make it not feel contrived? Or I don't have very much of the world built yet. What are some ideas that to get me going on the world building? And I like to sit and talk with people back and forth about brainstorming. And some people like to brainstorm alone, but I am not one of those people. I like to brainstorm with people. I'd much rather have a group of people to sit and talk with than a blank page to fill. My number 3 problem was that I lacked structure. And so part of knowing myself was knowing that I need structure to write a book. It makes sense because I'm a very detail oriented. I love lists, I love checklists, I love bullet journals, this is a list that I'm making this video of, right? I love lists, I love order, I love organizing. And so one of the things that I lacked in my other novels was having a really clear outline. And this time, I actually had more of an outline than I'd ever had before, but it still wasn't super detailed. I probably spent about a week on it, and that was all. And so, but what I would do is as I was writing, I would come to a section and it would say something like, she does research in newspapers. And I'm like, okay, that's not very structured. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. So I would, in the shower, I'd sit and I'd write the scene in my head, or I'd sit down and I'd plot out the scenes that I was going to write that day before I wrote them. And that really helped me personally to sit down and actually write, because I really like to know where I'm writing to. I like to have a destination in mind as I'm writing. And some people don't like that. Some people are the opposite, but for me, having that structure was really important. One of the other things that I've done is I've used resources, because before when I was writing, I didn't actually know anything about writing. I'd read a lot of books, and so that helped me, but I never learned about 3-act structure, different kinds of structures, or, you know, the lie that the character believes, or how a character arc is set up, or any of that. And so I've used different resources like Lessons from the Screenplay on YouTube, or the book Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and I've used those to learn about structure. So now when I sit down to outline, I actually know what I'm outlining. I don't feel like I'm just grabbing out of random stuff to like throw onto my outline so stuff's happening. I feel like I'm learning how to outline too. And I'm sure that as I write more novels, I'm going to learn even more. And it's really exciting that writing is like that the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more you learn. The last thing I did to overcome my lack of structure, when I was writing, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I just can't get this to work right. I can't seem to push through here. I'm just stuck. And what I would do is I'd go to my husband and I'd say, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's where I'm trying to take the plot. And we would sit and we'd talk about why I'm not feeling good about it, and we'd troubleshoot it, and we'd brainstorm in the middle of my book, which is something that I never, for some reason, thought about doing before. And maybe that was just like a duh thing. But I had never done that before on my books. And so it was really, really helpful to sit down with my husband or my writing group and say, I am stuck. What can we do? And most often it would be my husband and I, we'd like go on a road trip or something to visit my family, and we'd sit and talk about my book for like an hour. And then I'd be all excited about it again because I'd have the right direction, and we'd find the problem and be like, oh, well, this thing wasn't clicking because of this structural problem, and then all of a sudden it worked. You know, or why are you trying to make it with school? Do you even need school in there? And be like, no, I don't. Let's just make it summer. And then all of a sudden it works. The 4th obstacle I had was also a mindset thing, but it was I thought that I had to love writing novels. I thought that if I didn't enjoy it, then why was I doing it? Because you write novels for fun because, you know, you might never make a lot of money off of it or whatever. And the honest truth is I do want to make money eventually writing novels, and I want to work hard and get up to where I am making some money off of it. But I also want to do it for fun. And I've learned through this process that there are parts of the process that I really don't enjoy that much. And I didn't realize that before. So what I would do is I would skip the brainstorming and outlining phase, which I actually enjoy quite a bit. As long as I'm doing it with other people, then I really like it. I would skip that phase or spend very, very little time on it. And then I jump right into writing the first draft, and I try and push through and just kind of make myself do it. And I try and make myself do a lot of it at a time. and then I would never finish it, so I'd never get to move on to the editing phase. I didn't do that this time. This time I spent a lot more time on the brainstorming part with new knowledge that my husband and I had learned, and on the structure part. And then I did push through my first draft, but while I was writing my first draft, I was submitting entries to my writing group every single week, and they were giving me feedback on it. And so then that really helped me be like, okay, I can see the potential, I'm really excited to edit this. And so then I could see the next part that I really liked, and then I moved on to the editing phase, and I love the editing phase. I look forward to writing every single day, where some parts of writing the first draft, the beginning was okay. Like I was like, okay, yeah, I can do the beginning. And then the middle, the whole middle section, some days I would literally sit down to write and I'd be like, okay, I have to get 500 words, because that was my minimum. And I would get 150 words or 300 words, and I'd be like, I just can't write anymore, and I'd stop. Or some days I would get 501 words and I'd be like, done, done, finished, go on with my day. And it was something I didn't look forward to. And then I could tell I was getting towards the end of the novel, because I was starting to get to, it was easier to sit down and write my words, and sometimes I'd start writing 1,000 or 1,500 words a day instead of 501 words or whatever. But even the end, I didn't love writing it. I don't love writing the first draft. It gives me a little bit of anxiety. I think part of it is my personality, and part of it is I'm still learning that it's okay to write stuff that's bad. But the second phase of editing it, I've really, really enjoyed. And so I shouldn't give up on novel writing as a whole because I don't like one section of it, or because one section is hard, because I know, first of all, I enjoy the other parts so much, and it feels so good to have written a first draft. I feel very, like, it's a great accomplishment. I'm proud of it. And second of all, I know that I can learn to like that middle section more. I know that as I do it more, I will enjoy it more. There were two things in that also kind of helped me get through this, besides just learning that I enjoy other parts of it. And that was to make it a daily habit. The parts that I didn't like, I would just do a minimum. Just 500 words. Because it's better to write a little bit every day than to write sporadically and give up on a draft. And that's what I was doing before, is I was trying to write a lot every single day, and then I'd give up on my draft. So it was better for me to write 500 words. And some days I'd get writing and I'd write more. Some days, like I said, I would try and get 500 words and I'd quit at 350 words or something, which is like nothing. But I wrote. Writing 350 words, writing 100 words is better than writing 0. And the other thing that I did to try and make it a habit is never miss twice. If I missed a day of writing, I'd get right back on it the next day, and I'd never miss twice, because I wanted to be the kind of person who wrote every single day. I didn't want to be the kind of person who wrote sporadically. I am a novelist. I am a writer. I write every single day. The kind of person who does that. But in order to be the kind of person who does that, in order to be a novelist or a writer, I have to actually write. And even if I work on my book for 5 minutes and I get 100 words down, I wrote on my book that day. I am the kind of person who writes my book every day. And that was my goal with this first draft, was to get it done no matter how long it took, and work on it every single day. And there were days I missed, and there were days I didn't get 500 words, but I finished the first draft because I aimed for a small amount of words, 500 words, and I never missed twice. And then the last problem that I had was I was never truly committed to finishing my draft. My other drafts, I would say things like, well, I'm just going to try and write a book and see if I like it. Or I'm going to try to do NaNoWriMo and just see how it goes. And I had no accountability. I had no commitment. I never even told people I was doing NaNoWriMo. I would tell my husband, and he'd like brainstorm with me, and then I'd be like, I'm not actually going to finish it, But then nobody knew. Nobody knew. And so this time what I did is I told a whole bunch of people. I told it on here, on my main, what are we called? Community. I couldn't think of the word community. I told my main bookish community that I was going to write a book. I had a writing group. We literally met at my house every single week, and we had a minimum submission of 500 words every single week, and it just kept me writing. Some weeks I would literally be writing in order to submit my 500 words, and it kept me motivated. I was committed. The other times I said I was committed, like the last time when I wrote the 20,000 words with the beginning and the end of my book, I said I was committed. I was like, I'm gonna finish, I haven't finished ones in the past, but I'm gonna finish this one no matter what. And then I didn't. Because I didn't set it up to where I was actually committed to it. I didn't have any consequence for not finishing. This time I had a lot of consequence. My writing group was counting on me. I would have to come back and be like, well, I don't actually want to write, blah, 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 you know. I'd have to like justify to everyone here of why I didn't finish my book. I literally stopped my channel, which I really love my channel. I literally stopped my channel so that I could work on writing. And how would it look if I came back and I was like, well, I haven't recorded in 6 months, but I also don't have a book, you know? So I set myself up to have real commitments and real consequences if I didn't finish. And like I said, I made it just a daily habit, and I was like, it doesn't matter how long it takes. As long as I work on it every day and I'm able to submit to my writing group, that's all I want. Those were very low goals, but it helped me finish my first draft. And now I do feel like I will be able to finish my next first draft quicker than I finished this one. And I feel like I've learned so much about structure and writing and what makes things work, and just writing novels in general. I look at books differently now as I read them than I used to. I definitely think that if you want to write a novel but you've struggled to finish a first draft before, or you've thought about it before, these are things that I would definitely recommend. Find some resources to start learning about writing. Not only will you learn how to write, but it will get you excited about writing. Find a writing group. Make a writing group, even if it's just a couple friends who like to write in your neighborhood or something, or your family. Find a writing group, meet every week, submit words to each other, get feedback on it, and have them start reading the same resources too, so that you can all learn and grow together as writers. Find someone who will support you in your writing. My husband is that person for me. Someone in our writing group, she has a friend who doesn't even live in our city but lives somewhere else, who she writes with and supports her in her writing, and they're like writing buddies. And I think that's awesome, you know. Find someone like that who can support you. Try different things before giving up on writing. Try different things, try different methods. Learn about yourself. Are you the kind of person who wants to write their whole novel in a month during NaNoWriMo? Or are you the kind of person who wants to make a habit of it every day? Neither one is better than the other, but it's really important to figure those things out about yourself, and then really commit. Find ways to commit that work for you, and everybody will be different in how they find ways to commit to writing and finishing their novels in the way that they set those goals, but commit to finishing your first draft, and I don't think that you will ever regret finishing it. Thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this lengthy video. I hope you got something useful out of it. Let me know in the comments below if you've written a novel or written anything before, what you've learned about writing novels, or if you want to write novels, let me know in the comments below if you're going to use any of these tips or if you're going to move forward and write. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.